Thank you for tuning into another episode of Faith in Home Buying. I love equipping people of faith for the home buying process. And guess what? Today I have a special guest. I know it's been a little bit since I've had my guests because I've just been busy getting them to homes, but I had to take a moment to stop and pause and to be able to talk to, one of the many stories that have come up this last, maybe last several months since the beginning of the year. And Diana's story, Diana, say hi for everyone
Hi
real quickly.
everyone, Diana here.
As you see, she's a frontline. Well, no, don't as you see, but she's a frontline worker, and I'm super proud of her achievement of home ownership. And her story is like a lot of my clients, where again, just taking the leap of faith in home buying, and the dips and turns and turnarounds sometimes that happens, but in the end, ultimately homeownership was definitely on her plate to have. And so we're going to be talking to her. But first, I think what's fitting is a verse. And we were just talking earlier, but this verse just kind of came out and is really, really fitting. I know I've talked about it before, but I'm going to read it again. It's Proverbs 19, 21. And some of you might know it by heart, but a person may have many ideas concerning God's plan for his life, but only the designs of God's purpose will succeed in the end. Love that, because this story is just about, it fits this verse very, very well. And so, Diana,
Yeah,
you were a part of Faith and Home, like when we did it like a couple of years ago.
yeah,
Just tell me
20.
about that, and just not only just the class, but what it took to go, number one, to the class, kind of mustering up the faith to do that, and then even to contact me afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, thank you, Tamika, for bringing me on
Of
to
course.
share my story. And I think in many ways, if this could encourage and inspire anybody,
Yes.
to give you some context, I'm originally from New York, so I'm from Queens, New York, and I've always lived in rental apartments, one bedroom apartments, and was raised by a single mom, and so home ownership was a very far dream that seemed very much not possible, especially because growing up in school and everything, and then into
Mm-hmm.
college. We accumulated a lot of debt obviously as a family with my mom, and so I think that carried on into my adult life, in which very much kept me in this space of like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was frontline and working in the hospital and everything, but really like buying a home was like, I can't do that. Like, that's just, I
Yeah.
can't. I have all this debt. I have all these things that I have to cover, helping my mom and things like that. And so, no matter how many people told me, like, you need to buy a home, you need to buy a home, it was like, yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
you only knew like how much debt I had and how
Mm-hmm.
much,
Yep.
like you just don't know my full story. Like, it looks like I'm single and, thriving, and I was, and I am, I really
Mm-hmm.
was,
Yep.
but there was a lot of background, right, that most people
Mm-hmm.
didn't know in terms of like
Yep.
income and things like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
finally in 2018, I guess at the age of 30, I hit that
Yeah.
milestone age,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, okay, well, I really feel like I should. I never, like, it seemed like a far dream,
Mm-hmm.
buying a home, but it was always something that was very much on my heart, and I knew that owning a home, for myself, and then obviously for my mom, was going to be a huge step for us as a family, and it's something that
Yep.
God had in his plan for me. I just didn't know how and when, right? And so
Yep.
then at 30, I was like, okay, well, I feel like I have to get my ducks in a row. Like, it's about time that I really start looking into this. And that's, I think the whole milestone 30, turning 30 thing,
Uh-huh.
plus like, okay, I really feel like I can maybe do this, right? Because
Yeah.
I've been working for 10 years at that point. Um, and I still wasn't perfect, and I wasn't. And,
Yeah.
we'll probably go into like, that was my first, even just like dipping my toes into like home buying as an idea, right? That was when I
Yep.
went to class. I met you. I met Elva. Well, I had already known Tamika from church, but I met Elva for the first time, and so that was really definitely really inspiring to hear, um, how you guide your clients through the process and what that even
Mhm.
like begin to think of what that looks like. And then we did a follow up because I was definitely super inspired and like, okay, I think I can do this,
Yep.
maybe I can. And but let me talk to the experts who could probably tell me like for real if I can or not, or how
Mhm.
I can set myself up to do
Right.
down the line. So that was kind of the start.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember our first conversation, and it usually goes kind of the same way with a lot of people. Like, I don't know if I can do this, but this pre-approval is telling me that I can. And but also too, just to let people know, like sometimes when your initial like reach out, really it's God kind of getting you revved up to what He's about to do. Because with our initial, some homes that came up in, particular area, because it was a completely different area that you were looking in the first time.
Yeah.
And just, things weren't, it wasn't really coming up. It wasn't a whole lot of things that were of interest. And so we just kind of, it just kind of fizzled out a little bit. Sometimes it happens like that.
Yeah.
And, when it fizzles, I want to remind people that, again, when God's setting up plans in the background, a lot of times, obviously, we don't know what's going on in the background, who He's setting up in positions, opening up, homes like kind of later on in territories and area where He actually wants you to be because He's about to move you,
Yeah.
and when we really look at the situation in yours, and on the second half, we're going to go more into kind of like the current situation, but and just looking at it in the background in the first, part, the persons who, the person whose home that you actually moved into, they weren't ready right then and there, in order to move. So God was setting up something with that family and doing the things in that side, that family, and in your heart, and in, we'll meet Him in the next segment though, but also too, in the heart of who God would have for you for marriage and for future. So it's so interesting that, in your situation, right? All those 2 years, it was about 2, 3 years or so, right? In between
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
God was still setting up some things, but still the desire was there. And He's like, I already have that desire, but I need to move some other things in place.
Yeah. No, and I think it's important to note, like at that time, where at the time of, quote unquote, like it fizzled out, but I definitely used that time to
Yes.
prepare. I
Yep.
said, okay, I see this one, and
Mm-hmm.
I the whole notion of not to be self-made, right? Like to know
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
see this because God has this intentionally prepared for you, and I knew that in my heart. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also knew that there was steps I needed to make to clean up,
Yeah.
my not necessarily my credit. I never had bad credit, but
Right.
the debt was a big thing because I was at the time financially supporting my mom. She was
Mm-hmm.
out of work, and so financially supporting her, financially supporting myself,
Mm-hmm.
and not very much able to save. So I said, okay, well, now may not be the time to buy, but I certainly can set myself up so that in the next 1 to 2 years I can, right? And so
Right.
the whole idea of budgeting like that you mentioned class,
But you
that
took
was
that
not a
class
notion.
though.
That was not a notion to
Mm-hmm.
me. I mean, it was like this, like
Mm-hmm.
winging it kind of thing, like yeah, this, that, and everything's auto pay, and
Yep.
everything, there wasn't very much an awareness of
Mm-hmm.
organization in my income, my money.
Right. Right. Right.
And so I became a lot more cognizant of how to organize, my finances,
Yep.
and knew that that would make the difference down the line, right? And so I didn't take that as like a defeat. Like I just took
Yep.
that as like okay, time to prepare, and that's fine, right? And I was also single at the time. I hadn't met Kerma yet, who's not my fiance, and like I also really felt strongly like I would love to do this together with somebody. Oh God, I would really love to do this with
Yep.
somebody. and I think it was also like the background of like nobody in my family owning a home, right? Like ever. And so
Yeah.
even in Ecuador, my family's originally from, like not even they own homes. And
Yeah.
so that was a big thing for me, and I was able
Yeah.
to figure that out.
But you bring up a really great point though, Diana. In those times that it may not seem like it's going forward and going through, I would encourage everyone that goes through that kind of that sense like, oh gosh, nothing's not, no, not necessarily nothing's not happening. Just like Diana said, and even just even getting up to the why are we even doing the faith and home buying courses anyway, is to get you prepared in a sense where, okay, if it's not now, then let me continue to prepare myself so when it's time, I'm ready to go. And you were, when the time hit, saying, you know what, now is that time because we have a deadline, and we're going to talk about that in our next segment because we have a deadline. We're going to get married on this particular month. All right, I'm really ready now. Because imagine if you had just started, nothing kind of revved up. When we started looking initially the second time, you wouldn't really be ready, in a lot of ways, like budget wise, preparing and stuff. So you bring up a great point, and I hope someone caught that. Like during the time that it seems like nothing's happening, always continue to prepare yourself, always continue to educate yourself, and always continue to move yourself and maneuver yourself in a better position than where you were before, so that when it does happen, when that door opens, when it's time to kind of run and walk through it, you're ready and able to go. And so we are going to be transitioning into our next segment. And in the next segment, we're going to have Kermit on. This is the fiance that was waiting in the background too. God was getting a whole lot of things done and set up, and he played a really significant role in this next half and looking for the home. So I'm pretty excited to speak to Kermit as well. But stay tuned. Faith and home buying. I'm equipping people of faith for the home buying process with our special guest Diana, and we'll be right back. All right, so the second half of our wonderful home ownership story, I'm here with Diana, and now I'm here with her fiance Kermit, and like literally, they're about to be getting married in like the next couple of months. So the timing was everything on this, and that's what makes the story even that much more special. So, Kermit, why don't you say hello?
Hey everyone, my name's Kermit, Dan's fiance. Tamika.
Diana, we kind of left off in the first half, you getting yourself prepared and ready. So now the second half comes along where you're like, you know what, Tamika, I'm ready. And oh, and by the way, I'm going to be getting married soon, so I have a little bit of a time frame that I need to make sure I get a home. Talk to me about that. Coming back the second time, like ready and able to do it.
Yeah. I mean, so just to piggyback off what we had talked about earlier, like the time of preparation, right? When Kermit and I met, that's definitely something that we discussed in terms of, as we got more serious and thought about marriage and, whether we would rent, whether we would buy. And that was something I expressed to him, kind of early on, that I had it in my heart to buy a home since before I met him. And I had been, I had started to prepare. I needed still some help. I wasn't perfect. I was progressing in that. But that it was strong on my heart that I wanted to own a home,
Yeah.
and that I really felt like I could do it.
Yep.
In the next following year, which would have been, this year. Well, there was a question of whether when COVID happened, it was like, oh, it's now the time. And so together, at that point we had already talked about being engaged, and so we started looking like at what the market looked like. Maybe now is the time, but and kind of looking at our finances and everything, I was like, no, maybe maybe we should wait, right? But just to highlight that time of preparation, right? And then finally, towards the end of the year, it was like, okay, well, let's have a serious talk, like, okay, we are gonna go for the home buying. Okay, great. So what do we need to do to get there? And that's when I was like, I was like, well, I had already talked to Tamika back in 2018, and Elva, and so I have those relationships built, and those are the people I want to use for guidance, and I trust them, and so like let's get the ball rolling like that. And that's when I reached out again, like, okay, I think we have our ducks in a row. I think we can shoot for this early next year, 2021, right? And that's kind of how.
Exactly. And that was the setup. And Kermit, like I have to say, like your help and your insight, as just being a sounding board for Diana, it really, really did help. Just talk about that process too, Kermit. Like, hey, this is an exciting time. Like, what was your thoughts on just the home ownership journey and how crazy of a market we were in?
Yeah, markets definitely at that, especially at that time, I think it was at the peak of craziness.
Hmm.
I when she told me this is something she really wanted to do initially, I was hesitant because I told her I was like, hey, like you just got a new job, we're trying to buy a home and you want to get married all in the same year, like.
Yep,
Yeah,
why
and not to
not?
mention he was
Hey,
sending.
hey.
Like that's a lot. I was like, "You sure you want to do this?" And she
Yep.
looked at me and she was just like, "Are you trying to tell me something?" I'm like, "No, I'm with you. I'm on board. I'm on board." But I just want to make sure this is going to be a lot. So after we had the conversation, I definitely dove in headfirst into real estate, learning about real estate, doing all the research necessary to see what the market was currently like, seeing, what we qualify for, how much, I even set a budget for us of like, okay, this is our budget, this is our max, this is our minimum, like this is what we're looking for. These are the areas that we should probably look in if this is our budget. And so I did a lot of research, spent a lot of time just pouring in that time to do that information because I know this was very important from her even before she knew me. But I
Yep.
also knew it was important for us in the future to build a family. Um,
Yep.
and family is very important to us. Even our family,
Hmm.
both our families are outside of California, and
Yep.
so it's definitely important for us to have a place to our family to come to as
Yep.
well. So after those conversations, it was from there all uphill, just trying to figure out what exactly we can afford. And then we always had good reviews about Tamika, so it was like, hey, like get Tamika involved. Let's see if everything matches up with what I'm researching here.
Yeah, no, and it did. You guys worked together as a great team. And one of the things I do want to highlight is, just the process of figuring out where, and it's so interesting because it was, at first one place, and then you have to make the decision. Okay, well, do I want to be somewhere? I'm looking for future. Do I want to wait a 5, 8 year plan? I'm looking for a little bit of a longer plan. My job, we had a job change. And so even more so now we're looking more in the East Bay, where we weren't, or Contra Costa County, where we weren't actually looking before, but the affordability was there. And so, just to let people know, sometimes plans change because the other plans, that God has for you in the area of job, the area of just community changes. But the good thing about it is, and I want to make sure I get into this, I had talked about it before about pivoting, being able to you go through this process saying, God, I'm in this with you. I'm making these plans, but you are totally okay to disrupt my plans and just to make sure that I'm in the area that I need to be in. Where have you called me? And where is it going to be fruitful for my family and, my guests and the people and just my community, period, right? And he did that. I know we're closing to the end, but I got to highlight that, we were looking in, Concord area, and great homes in Concord. But man, oh man, that competition, because Diana really wanted to, make sure she didn't go in non-contention. She wanted to read over everything. And I believe that God heard the desires of her heart, because the home that we were going for, the agent, the listing agent on that home, she says, Tamika, this home is going to go for a lot more than I think you're going to be comfortable with. However, in the agent that I'm in contract with, she has a home in the Pleasant Hill area. Why don't you go and look at that home, because it's not as it's not as popular as it is in the Concord area, but it's beautiful in that area. So guess what? I heard, I said, you know what? Let's pivot. And I'm so glad that they did. And when we pivoted, looked at the home, was like, whoa, wasn't a whole lot of offers, maybe about 3 or so. I hit it off with the listing agent, and I know it was by the grace of God, but we were able to get in there with an actual contingency. So
Yeah.
she can look over the disclosures, look over the reports, and, so how did that feel, Diana? Because, obviously we were looking at non-contingent going in way over asking.
Yeah,
You get an
I mean,
opportunity to get the desire of your heart.
yeah, that was tough during that time because, obviously that was my first time going through this
Mm-hmm.
process. On paper, I would read that that was the market, and
Yep.
Kermit was looking up everything that you were telling me, Tamika, and I heard that. But then, like, when we finally decided to put an offer in, and that came back almost like reality set, and it was like, oh wait, so that means this, like that mean, and I prayed about it, we prayed about it, and I was like, honestly, like I it like it doesn't feel right. I cannot move forward with like something, you know just as is, take it as is, just make the decision within 24 hours. And that was the common theme throughout, like, just the market in general. So
Yeah.
that was like my first experience, like making an offer, and that being the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, maybe we should backtrack. Maybe we should. I was like, maybe I shouldn't buy. Like I was starting to have those, doubts and hesitations, right? Because it didn't, it didn't fit with.
Yeah.
It just didn't sit right. I can't even explain it. It was just like, and I prayed about it, and I was like, no, there has to be a way, like, God, because I just, like, I know that this is where you want us, like you want us in
Mm-hmm.
home, but
Mm-hmm.
this market doesn't feel right, or this, not this market, but this particular scenario of non-contingency doesn't feel right to me. And so anyway, we went back and forth, about that one particular offer that we put on, but
Mm-hmm.
praise God, yeah, the connection that Tamika had made with that realtor led her to then point out this other house that Kermit had actually seen as well in his searches, daily searches as well. And so at first I was like, okay, but I don't like this, I don't like that. I had definitely a lot of,
Apprehension. Yeah.
initial apprehensions and things like that. But absolutely, I think from the get-go, I appreciated that it was certainly a blessing to be in the position of having this contingency,
Mm-hmm.
of being able to place an offer with this, and then, not having 15 plus offers
Exactly.
going, with
Mm-hmm.
you. We also wrote a letter in which, I actually
Mm-hmm.
appreciated the opportunity to share the same story I just shared here, right?
Yep. Yep.
My background, and,
Yep.
what our plans and dreams were with the seller at the time. And so, yeah, that pivot was everything, because I don't know that if that pivot hadn't happened, I may have taken a seat back, I think.
Exactly. And
Um,
in the average amount of homes that people offer on are like 8. And you only see one. And that's another thing I want to let people. Right. Well, we're winding to an end, but that's just one thing I want to, just to make sure that people are aware of. But, thank you, Kermit. Thank you, Diana, for just sharing like your part. I wish you nothing but the best of memories and love. And Kermit, you've already, men out there, I'm telling you, you need to take some notes. Kermit, shoot, let's try to drop a DM, but you can contact me at TamikaEllsworth.com or hit me up on Instagram at Tamika Ellsworth, even on TikTok, real estate _T, especially if you want to get some tips from the man of God that literally came through and really was a sounding voice for his fiance. And, it's a great start to your marriage. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate you both. And, I wish you nothing but the best. Right. This is Tamika Ellsworth with Faith in Home Buying. Thank you. Hey, I'm equipping people of faith for the home buying process.